Okay, have you seen this personal curriculum trend on TikTok? It's basically people creating their own courses on things they actually want to learn. I think it's kind of genius. I spent years feeling guilty about all of the creative things that I wanted to learn, but never actually made time for. The art history books gathering dust, and the pottery class I kept meaning to take, and the hand lettering practice that just stayed on my someday list. I love this personal curriculum idea because it gives a container to all those scattered interests, and it removes the friction between you and all of the things you actually want to pursue. I started thinking about all of the ways that this trend could work for creatives who want to DIY their own design or art school, and it got me really excited. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can make your own personal curriculum, specifically designed for creatives who want to turn their scattered interests into intentional learning. Let's dive in. If we're just meeting, I'm Janelle. I've been a freelance graphic designer for over 15 years now, and this is my space to talk about design and freelance life and how to have a creative career without losing your soul, and occasionally we dive into some creative experiments here. So if that sounds like fun to you, hit the subscribe button because I would really love to hang out again. Okay, so first off, why is this even worth bothering with, right? I get that this might feel a little fussy or overly rigid. Here's the thing, if there is one thing that unites all creative people, it's that we tend to have a lot of scattered interests across a lot of different disciplines that don't always go in a straight line, right? That's what makes a brain creative. We're constantly inspired, but we don't always have the structure to follow through in learning something. If you're at all like me, you probably have a pile of materials that you picked up for a hobby you intend to get to someday. And the thing piquing your interest at the moment is probably not the thing you actually need to be working on. So you feel guilty following those curiosities instead of inspired by them, right? I can't be alone in this. By taking the time to intentionally think through what you want to be learning about and exploring in the next coming season, you can create structure for those moments when you're not brimming with inspiration. And you can give yourself permission to play and dabble in those interests. This idea removes the friction from learning, so when you actually do have time, you're not spending half of it trying to decide what you want to work on. It's the creative equivalent to not spending the whole night browsing on Netflix deciding what to watch before you actually start the movie, right? You know exactly where to turn when you have a few spare minutes and you want to turn your brain onto something because you've already prepared the space for it. Say one of your DIY courses requires making something hands-on, right? If you gather all the supplies in one place and plan out the project ahead of time, then when you sit down for an hour to draw or paint or do whatever, you're not wasting that really precious creative time. And that's the beauty of this kind of structure. It also just helps combat that feeling of brain rot when you realize you've spent the last 30 minutes scrolling Instagram for no reason, when if you had had something on your phone to turn to, you would have been reading that instead. That's the difference we're talking about here. So hopefully I've convinced you on the why. Now let's get into the how. This, like all creative work, comes down to knowing yourself and how your specific brain works, and then creating structures to help support that. What works for me might be different than it does for you, but you have to find a rhythm and a schedule that suits your brain and your learning style. So first, choose your timeline. The general idea behind the trend is that by treating it like a course that you would go through if you were in school with a firm schedule and timeline, that you mentally take it a little bit more seriously than you would if it's like, oh, I just want to read that book. Personally, I think thinking in terms of seasons or semesters is a lot more freeing than like a month-to-month curriculum. I don't need one more source of guilt in my life, and I've got a lot of other stuff going on. So thinking in terms of what do I want to be focusing on for the fall season is a lot more freeing than like what am I going to get done in September. Declaring on a good day that I'm going to cram in a whole course of study into 1 month feels like I'm setting myself up for a lot of guilt. But on the flip side, I could see how a shorter timeline with more concrete goals might work for your brain to not feel like you're just letting yourself off the hook with a lot of extra time. So you've got to find whatever time works for you. Then you have to choose your approach. Some people seem to like one focused subject that they can really do a deep dive in for a period of time. And then others like the idea of picking a thing from different types of learning so that they're always learning something and they can kind of jump around between them. So if you're a designer, you might create a typography deep dive semester. You could make yourself courses like the history of type 101 over here, and then the life and style of Louise Feely, and how to create a handwriting font, for example. all of those things around one containing idea. Or you could focus on different areas of interest and jump around. So every semester you create yourself a history kind of a class, and a hands-on craft kind of a class, and a deep dive into a new idea, for example. Whatever makes sense to you, you want to pick a structure that will keep you interested. Finally, you have to choose how you want to organize all of this. It could just be a Google Doc, that's fine. Maybe you love writing in a physical journal and you buy yourself a new notebook for this project. For me, I love Notion because it's free and there's sort of endless possibilities of creating a structure that holds as much information as I want to put into it. I can keep everything contained, but then have endless pages for all of the notes and resources that I will inevitably find as I go down these rabbit trails. It really works for me, but find whatever works for you. All right, now on to the good stuff. However you choose to structure all of this, you're going to want to create classes for yourself. And you'll want to keep track of certain things each time. First, I think it's really important that you have one spot where you jot down what the goals are, what your learning objectives are for this course. Why do you want to take this? Why does it interest you? What are you hoping to get out of it? What do you want to see when you walk away to feel like, yeah, I really got that one, I'm ready to go? Don't make this academic. Make it really specific and personal to you, and something that will actually motivate you as you go forward. This does not need to be laborious, but just taking a second to think about what the why is will help keep you motivated later on. Then you want to record the timeline. This could be as simple as fall semester, or you could be more specific in weekly goals and to-do lists that you break down. You could put it on a calendar so you actually have reminders of what you're wanting to work on. Go deeper only if the structure actually helps you. Whatever you need to stay focused and remember what you're working on without adding on extra judgment and shame is what you should do. The really fun part is diving into your topic and finding resources to help you learn it. The more you can front load finding books and resources and things you want to work through now while you're excited about it, the less you have to think about it later, so you don't have to decide what book you want to go check out from the library. You've already done that work right now. This can get a little overwhelming, so I think it's helpful to have some primary sources that you know you want to start with, and then have a secondary list that any extra resources or recommendations or things you find you can put on. So if you have time and you want to do a deeper dive, you can keep finding new things and diving into them, but you know kind of what you're going to start with, even if it's just one book. And then think beyond books. Maybe you take a Skillshare class to learn a really specific skill set, or you do a deep dive on Wikipedia or in the TED Talks archive, podcasts and documentaries on your topic. Even just YouTube has an endless supply of really helpful educational video content. Crash Course alone is a goldmine if you can find one that's on the subject you're interested in. There are so many different interests and resources that can really help you beyond just needing to sit down with a book. I actually have so many ideas for this that I'm going to go ahead and make a part 2 for this that'll come out next week. I'm going to dive way more into really specific ways to research your interests and create your course, and also some ideas for fun courses that you might want to try. So stay tuned for that, and maybe subscribe so you get notified. A key component to this trend that I think takes it one step beyond just picking up a book that you're interested in is actually giving yourself some kind of assignment or homework. I know that might feel like a drag, but there's something about gamifying and mentally shifting our brain into feeling like we are in class. It could be as simple as a word dump on a piece of paper or a little essay that you write about what you learned. If it's a creative topic, maybe it's actually making some sort of a project or inspired by a period of history you're learning about or something like that. You could throw a party about the topic or invite friends over to just talk about it. Even something as simple as committing to giving like an oral report to a friend or a partner kind of forces you to take it a little bit more seriously and catalog the things you've learned a little bit more long term. No matter what the end result is, creating something makes the thing feel final and complete and like you've logged it into your long-term memory. I don't think that you should skip this, even if it feels a little extra. Obviously, you want to take notes on what you're learning. And just having a standard scrap piece of paper on hand, or knowing where you're going to take those notes, when ideas come to you, or there's a quote you find in a book, having a dedicated spot to put those things will help you remove the friction in that moment and actually capture things. Years later, you're going to be able to look back and remember what you learned this year, which is really cool. This is a little addition of my own, but I think it would be really fun to include a field trip in every class that you take. Obviously, this is very open to interpretation, but if you live in an area with a museum that is relevant to what you're learning about, go do a museum day or visit a site that inspires you. Even just taking a walk for inspiration where you're specifically going to focus on seeing a certain kind of thing could be really meaningful. Maybe there's a one-day workshop that's relevant to a craft that you just learned, or a party that you could throw with friends, or an event you could join. Something that kind of encapsulates what you just learned and kind of makes it fun and experiential. I think it takes it from this academic thing into something that is really a part of your life. Maybe you host a movie night inspired by the topic and have people over to talk about it. This could be something you do solo or as a group activity. It can really look however you need it to, but there's something about calling it a field trip that I think makes it feel a little bit more real and a part of your life and just makes it fun. So that's really all there is to prepare for each course you want to take. But I have a few tips that I think will set you up for success. I know I keep saying this, but you want to make this as frictionless as possible. Maybe that means downloading a book onto your phone. So if you're out somewhere and you're in line and you have a few extra minutes, instead of pulling up Instagram, you pull up your reading app because you have it already loaded. The goal is to replace your automatic brain rot activities with things you actually want to be learning about. So you have to make them really easy to access. And if any of your classes involve making something physically, put all of the supplies that you'll need into a little cart or a caddy so you can wheel it from room to room and have really easy access. Or set it by your couch so in the evenings it's really natural to pull that out and work on it while you're watching a movie or something without needing to think about it. Anything you can do to make this a natural part of your life will mean that you actually turn to it instead of it just being a good idea. Secondly, this does not need to be expensive. Make a date where you go and check out all of the books that you'll need for your syllabus. If you're in the United States, you can use the Libby app, which is completely free and gives you digital access to probably anything you'd want to rent from the library. It's pretty amazing. Money 100% does not need to be a barrier here, and that is so cool. My third tip is to create rituals around learning for yourself. Ideally, you would have one designated place, like a desk or a cozy chair, that you can set up for yourself so when you sit down, you know, okay, now I'm in learning mode. Maybe you'll make a certain playlist of music that helps keep you inspired, or you light a candle, or have a certain cup of tea every time you sit down. Anything that signals to your brain that you're in this cozy learning space and you actually look forward to doing. I think a lot of us have some pretty old mental tapes about learning being really difficult and hard. So anything you can do to make the space cozy and fun and something you actually look forward to doing will rewire some of those things for you and have it be something you really look forward to. This is totally optional, but buy yourself school supplies for that fresh start feeling. You don't have to go crazy, but even just a new pen or a notebook can create that bouquet of sharpened pencils, fresh fall feeling that makes you feel like you're a kid on the first day of school. And there's something really great about that. Big thing is that this should be fun and not shame-inducing. If you found a resource that you thought would be great and you're just not getting into it, switch. There are so many other things you can read. You can DNF something. It's okay to put the book down and try something else. And know your brain. If you started out a little optimistic and made it a little rigid, and then, life happened and you ran out of time, that's okay. Your fall curriculum can be your winter curriculum. It's really all right. The whole point of this being self-guided is that it's something that actually gives you life instead of feeling like a chore that you're failing at. Honestly, I kind of feel like the hardest part of this is just choosing what you want to study. That's why next week I want to do a part 2 where I dive into specific ideas. I was going to do a few, and then I came up with over 30 really specific rabbit trails you could go down just to help get your brain going. So stay tuned for that when it comes out. And in the meantime, watch this video. I go over all of the books that have really saved my creativity when I've been in a slump. And if you like this video, I think you're going to love that one. See you there.